Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff, and in today's video we're talking sublimation mistakes. So these are 5 common sublimation mistakes I see made by people in my Sublimation Made Simple Facebook group, which I will link in the description below. These are mistakes I see a lot of new sublimation crafters making, and if I'm being honest, I've made all of them in the past myself, but hopefully this video will prevent you from making these mistakes and give you tips and tricks for doing it correctly the first time. The first mistake I see often is people testing on expensive blanks. So they will say, I've gone through 12 tumblers and I can't get this color right. And I just want to be like, no, stop. Don't do it that way. Instead, I want you to go to your local fabric store and buy some cheap polyester fabric. So this is $1 a yard, super cheap, but this means that every time I do a print, I test it on this first. I would much rather spend the few extra cents it costs to do a print than to put it on my blank and find out that it's wrong. I mean, this is going to be a several dollar blank. This is $3 for 3 yards. So I see a lot of people also using like dollar store pot holders or tea towels or that sort of thing, which is better than this blank, but it's still more expensive. I've got 3 yards of fabric here for $3, whereas each tea towel is going to be $1 if it's from the dollar store. So I really think that this is such an economical way to make sure your prints look right before you put them on your blank. If you're having issues with your color, totally understandable. I'm going to go ahead and link to a blog post I have on working with ICC profiles for converted Epson printers. It's down in the links. I also have a video coming up very soon on that. It's almost done. But this is definitely the more economical way to test your prints as opposed to testing all of your prints on the blank itself. The second mistake I see a lot of crafters make is that they don't clean their blanks properly. We get a lot of photos of sort of zoomed in pictures of projects that have spots or dots or little squiggly marks, and that's because the person didn't clean their blank properly. Sublimation uses such high heat that if you have dust, hair, any kind of debris on your blank, the color in that debris can be sublimated onto your image. It can also prevent the sublimated image from covering your blank entirely. So if you have a big piece of dust, you put the sublimation thing on it, it won't sublimate through the dust, and you may end up with something like white spots. So you need to clean your blank. There are 2 main ways to do this. I prefer a lint roller for my soft blanks, so t-shirts, onesies, tote bags, that sort of thing. Just get a lint roller. They're very cheap, very easy to use. You can also use a lint roller on hard blanks, and I do occasionally, but I have found that I like the isopropyl alcohol better here. I think that it does a better job of getting up the oils in your fingerprints and that sort of thing when you're working with a hard blank. So basically just put a little bit on a cotton ball or a little microfiber wipe down your blank, let it dry fully, and then it should be ready to go. Don't let it sit very long because obviously there's dust in the air and it can settle onto your blank and then you need to do it all over again. So this is the step that I do right before I put my transfer on, and it will prevent all of those little dusts or those little dots and squiggle marks that you end up with on your sublimated projects. The third mistake I see is people not taping their projects well enough. I actually just put up a video a couple weeks ago about taping tumblers and how to do it properly so that you don't end up with ghosting at the top and bottom. But taping your projects well applies to basically any blank that you have. I like the blue tape versus the yellow tape. I have not found this to bleed. This is a PYD Life's tape. It's great. Cricut tape works great as well. I have found that this does not leave marks. It doesn't seem to imprint into my blanks like the yellow tape does. So go with the blue tape and then tape your project well. One place I see this a lot is on flat blanks. You may put like just a couple pieces of tape in the corner, but if you're lifting up that press, you know, if you have a clamshell press and you're lifting it up and the whole project kind of like comes up with it, that is still hot enough to resublimate a ghosted image of your transfer. So you definitely want to be very careful when you're opening your press. You want to tape it really well. You just don't want any of that shifting because the slightest shift can create that like ghosted or uneven area, and that can ruin your entire project, which is such a bummer. So tape really well, and that will help prevent ghosting and other issues with your transfers. The fourth mistake I see people making is not using butcher paper. Butcher paper is important because of the way the sublimation process works. Sublimation ink starts out as a solid, and then when it's heated to a high temperature, a chemical reaction occurs and it is turned into a gas, and then it is basically cooled onto your project. And because sublimation ink turns into that gas, you can get things like blowouts. You can also see the sublimation ink sort of leaching through the transfer paper. So butcher paper is essential to keep your press clean. Whether you are using a flat press or a mug press or something like that, it is essential that you have at least one, often two pieces of butcher paper. I really like buying my butcher paper in these flat sheets from Amazon. These are designed to wrap sandwiches, but they work really well, and I'm not dealing with a roll with the curling and all that. Nope, I love this. They're 12 by 12. They're the perfect size for my heat press, and they work really well. If you're doing a flat project, you definitely want butcher paper around the top and bottom of your project. If you're doing something like a mug, you can just wrap it around and tape it. You also want to make sure you're using actual butcher paper. I see people using wax paper or parchment paper, and both of those, not great. Wax paper has wax, and what happens to wax when it gets hot? It melts. So it's not good for any of your presses, and you definitely don't want to use wax paper. Parchment paper has a silicone coating, which sometimes works, but is also really not great. The butcher paper really is what you want to be looking for when doing your sublimation projects. And finally, number 5, I want to talk a little bit about images. This is not necessarily a mistake as much as it is an ethical issue, but I think it's really important to talk about. So one of the things that I see a lot is that people will be like, look at this cute Yoda mug I made, or this Audi t-shirt or whatever. But all of these images are held by the copyright of their respective owners. So obviously Disney owns Baby Yoda and Audi owns the Audi logo. And you're making projects using these, and it is technically illegal. You may have purchased files like this on Etsy, but I can guarantee you that those files are illegal. There's absolutely no chance that Disney is going to license Mickey Mouse to some person creating sublimation designs. It's just not going to happen. So those images are on Etsy illegally, and Etsy tries to keep up. I don't think they do a very good job of it, but they do take them down all the time. And you definitely don't want to sell items that you're making using these images, because then Disney could come after you for making money off their image. And I don't want that. I don't want you to get in legal trouble. So I would stick to images that are not copyrighted, that don't have some big corporation behind them, because that is the fastest way to get into legal hot water, and I don't want you to do that. And then you may be saying to yourself, I'm just going to use them for personal use. It's fine. But that sort of falls apart when you think about anything else. My friend Angie from the Country Chic Cottage is fond of the metaphor that if you went into a grocery store and nicked a candy bar and got caught, you couldn't just say like, oh, it's fine, the Snickers is for personal use. No, you get like charged with shoplifting. So in the same way, you just can't use these copyrighted images for personal use because you're still making something with them. I have a blog post that talks a little bit more about this stuff. I am not a lawyer, so don't take this as legal advice. This is me just trying to help keep you on the up and up. But I will link to that blog post below as well. All right, those are the top 5 mistakes I see people making as new sublimation crafters. I hope that you found this video helpful and it prevents you from making these same mistakes. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. And if you liked this video and found it helpful, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next week.